Hello, everyone. In this video, I want to introduce you to the CoAgMet weather data network that we run here in Colorado. And I'm on their homepage right now. You can see here coagmet.colostate.edu. And on the left, you see the map showing all the different stations that CoAgMet has across the state. And these are a lot of the data from these stations we'll use for a lot of our assignments and as a way to evaluate different situations, what their micrometeorology is, and use those data to do things like calculate evapotranspiration. So if you hover your mouse over different places, right, you can see the name and the current temperature. Here's the RDEC station that we often use. This is the experiment station here just north of Fort Collins, right? That's a really common station that we use for our analysis. We oftentimes will use another one out here, like one of these Greeley stations or around Greeley. And then we'll pick other stations around the state, right? Like maybe La Junta or Rocky Ford. We might pick something like Center here for the San Luis Valley, or we might pick something like the CSU Orchard Research Station or Fruta to give you a nice range of different kinds of conditions in different regions of the state. Now, there's a lot of information on CoAgMet, right? You can go to these different tabs up here. You can look at descriptions of the stations. This is really nice because it'll tell you what kind of instruments are installed. Okay, so for example, for wind speed and direction, right, they have an RM Young wind monitor. For temperature and relative humidity, they have this HMP 45 by Vaisala, gives the air temperature accuracy and humidity accuracy. So there's really lots and lots of information available. If you scroll down here a little bit, there's a nice picture of a lot of the stations that you can also see. This is very typical, where you see the weather instruments, solar powered rain gauge here and another rain gauge here, right? This is in some kind of a grazed system, so they've got a little fence around it. So these stations, again, are all over the state. Yeah, they send data in at 5-minute intervals. Then those data are available to us. The historical data are available for us to download. So going back up to the top, let's go to the data access page. This is what we'll use a lot. And what this is what they call an API URL builder. So by checking different things down here in this box, we can select what data we want it to download and over what periods of time and at what interval, right? So let's start here at the top. We want to get a chunk of data. Let's say we want to look at the data from the RDEC weather site in 2025, and we want the daily data over the growing season. So that's approximately May 1 to October 1, right? Basically a 5-month period. So we want to get the data products by date. That's the first change that you make. With the data format, we want comma separated variables. That's a really convenient format that we can load into lots of different programs like, Excel, R, MATLAB, whatever. The next thing is to pick what station that you want. We want data from a single station, and I'm going to use this bar down here and go down to the RDEC station, which is FTC03. Okay, so I clicked on that. And then our next thing is to look at what all else we want. We want a header. We want labels on the variables across the top. That's good. We want the data that's been quality controlled. Our units, we want to change that to metric. Okay. And in this case, I want daily data. Notice when I click daily, this field's changed because the daily data are different than the hourly data. Hourly, daily. So let's pick data daily. And like I said, I want to get data from in 2025 from May 1, okay, to back to 2025, October 1. Okay, May 1 to October 1, that gives us the growing season. Okay. And date format, I usually pick this ISO 8601. This is a really common format recognized by a lot of data analysis systems. Okay, let's go down here to the fields that we want to select. Now there's a lot of things here. If you want everything, you just go check all. Okay, it checks them all. Or you can go check none, right? There may be a lot of things here that you don't really need for whatever your analysis is. So I'm going to start with check none to get them all out of the way. And for most, let's say an evapotranspiration analysis, let's say we're trying to calculate water loss from this system, I'm just going to pick the variables that are most related to that. So maximum temperature, minimum temperature, okay? I want the vapor pressure, average vapor pressure over 24 hours. I want to know the precipitation. I want to know the wind run. That's just the total amount of wind, or basically is another measure of average wind speed over the whole day. I want both of these solar radiation variables. We'll talk more about what these are later. And I want these, let me go ahead and get all of these ET measurements or calculations, right? So we've got a pretty straightforward data set here. We're going to get max and min temperatures, average vapor pressure, precipitation, wind, solar radiation, and at least how the CoAgMet station calculated ET using 4 different approaches here. And we'll talk more about those later, but let's not worry about that now. Let's just get this data. Okay, so once I have checked all those, it creates a unique URL up here that we can send to the CoAgMet servers, and it's going to respond back with the data. So there's 2 ways to use this at this point. I can just click open, and when I do that, it just generates the data set in the browser. So here you can see the headers across the top and units, and we can see it starts here on May 1, and if we follow all the way down, it goes to October 1. Okay, so that looks good. The station name is correct. It looks like it's the correct value, okay? Now there's another way to open this. Let me close this for a second. You can copy this URL, everything that's inside this request here. So I go copy, and then I can open another window and paste that URL into the address window and hit return, and it will also generate the same thing. Okay, so very nice. Okay, so now here's all the data. So let's say there's a couple of things I could do here. I could hit like Control S and actually save that data file, right? So let me say I want to save it as I might give it a name that makes sense. Like I'm going to call it, leave the station name on there, and then maybe put in daily 2025. Okay. And then I might put GS for growing season. Okay. And so that gives me some indication of what that is, right? So, and I'm going to change this suffix to CSV. And then I'm going to save it. Okay. So now I've got that saved as a CSV file that I could import into other programs. One way that kind of is a sort of fast, easy way to do it, if you're working with Microsoft Excel, is you can just hit Control A here to copy everything, or excuse me, Control A to select everything, Control C then to copy it. So now all that data is on my clipboard. Then let me open up a blank Excel sheet. Okay, put my cursor in the top left-hand corner and hit Control V and paste it in there. Okay, so there it all is. Now it doesn't look very well formatted. In fact, all of this data is in the first column. So we need to go to the Data tab, Text to Columns. It's delimited data, so I go yes. It's comma delimited, right? So click that. And I'm also going to tell it that the second column is a date. Okay. And then I'm going to say finish. Oh, there we go. Now we've got a much nicer looking spreadsheet. So now this looks pretty good. I have all the data from all those different variables in here. They're ready to plot and things like that, right? So often, just to make Excel work better, I delete the second row. So if you go back to home and then you can go delete, all right, there we go. Now that just seems to work a little better because Excel and a lot of its graphing algorithms expects just to have one header row, not two. So if you wanted to make a simple plot, like let's say you want to do the date and you want to look at maximum and minimum temperature, right? I can select all those using the control click approach, right? So I'm just holding down the control key and clicking my mouse, right? And it's selecting those. So I'm going to hit control click. They're all grayed in. And then I can go insert, and I want to insert a line plot right here, and you can kind of get a preview of what they look like, right? So let me just pick the default one there. And now I've got a nice plot of maximum and minimum air temperature from RDEC over 2025. And a lot of the time what I do is I'll use the quick chart layout tool to change the format to something that's a little bit more scientific, right? Maybe something like this, okay? And now I would go in here and change these axis titles, you know, put titles in like you want, like this is T air or air temperature RDEC 2025, for example. I would put T air down here for this guy. So I know what the variable is. And the date variables down here are kind of not what I would really like to have. You can see it's just kind of picked some various intervals here, which are kind of hard to read. You can double click on that and pull up this axis format tool. And you can say that I want the major units to be months, and I want it to be a 1 month interval. And this gives you a little bit nicer looking x-axis, right? So you don't have so many labels down here. It just has, you know, May 1st, June 1st, July 1st, all these in here. That's something that I often do. And basically I have a nice plot here, right? And I'm ready to go. So you can see that downloading data from CoAgMet is not too difficult, and you can load it into various different programs, and we'll practice doing that as we go through the class.